Okay friends, it's time to get started on our rearward engine mount. We will have to drop the subframe a little bit to remove the mount from the area. With that said, you're going to need to also get yourself a 4-wheel alignment. Right along where your exhaust is, up along this area, you're going to be able to see the mount in there. To remove the bolt that goes from side to side, we're going to have to go ahead and remove the spring bolts for our exhaust. Keep in mind when you remove those bolts, it's common for them to break. Also, when you pull down the exhaust, it's a good idea to make sure you replace the gasket at the same time. To remove each of these, I'll use a 17mm socket. Set this aside, remove the other. Now with both of our mounting bolts out of the way, carefully grab onto the pipe. We're going to slide it back and then lift it up. Now let's apply some upward pressure underneath our transmission. Now let's carefully get a 14mm on our through bolt. Once you have that on there, go ahead and remove the bolt. As I start unscrewing this, I'm going to make my way up to hold the mounting nut. Remove that nut. You'll notice it has a locking ear on it. We'll set that aside. Now let's finish removing the bolt. Now that we have that through bolt out of the way, let's continue underneath the subframe. You're going to find two 14mm headed nuts. Remove the pair. Now that we have both those nuts off, move along to this area. You have a 14mm headed bolt. Remove it. Now let's slowly start raising the transmission as much as possible, but you don't want to necessarily put too much pressure and damage anything. Feels as though it wanted to stop there. Now the next thing we're going to want to do is carefully start lowering down the subframe. We don't want to come very far because there are things attached to it that we don't want to damage. To start lowering the subframe, we're going to have to do the same thing on either side. You're going to find that you have this cross beam. Use a 14mm to remove each of the bolts and then the rod. Now we're going to use a jack to support the subframe. With the subframe safely supported, we're going to remove 4 19mm headed bolts that hold the subframe to the body of the vehicle. You're going to find 2 on each side, one out in the open towards the rear, and then the other one would be located straight up through the control arm hole all the way up there, next to the sway bar. Inspect your hardware as you remove it. Now let's do the same on the other side. Now at this point, we need to be extremely careful. We're going to start lowering down the subframe a little bit, only enough that we can remove the mount. Now I'll reach up in here and try working this out of its mounting position. Roll it out of position and remove it from the vehicle. There it is, friends. Okay friends, let's get ready to install our brand new mount. Now obviously on the new mount you still have those studs that we dealt with by removing the original one. We're going to have to try to get these up and into the subframe while we're putting these in. Now that I have this up here, we're going to start trying to line up the studs with their corresponding holes. At this point, we're ready to start resecuring our subframe. You want to make sure you start in all 4 of your mounting bolts. After that, snug them up. Now that I have this side started in, I'll do the exact same thing on the other side. Now that all of the mounting bolts are started, snug them up. Now for these rearward lower bolts, you're going to torque those to 86 foot-pounds. And for the bolts that are up through the control arm here, torque those to 52 foot-pounds. I showed you this side, do the exact same thing on the other side. Now we can remove the support from under our cross member. Now we can put on our crossover bars. Now we can go ahead and snug each of these bolts, then we'll torque them to 35. Once we finish this bar, do the exact same thing to the other side of the vehicle. Now we can start lowering the engine onto the engine mount. You might need to move it around a little bit. Now as we bring this down, you're trying to pay attention to the cross hole. We want to make sure that we can put that cross bolt right on through, from the exhaust side through towards the driver's side. Now we'll just raise or lower the engine as needed. Now that we have it through there, let's go ahead and put on our nut, paying attention to the locking tab. We want to make sure that can grip onto something. Obviously, I'll be extremely careful not to damage my O2 sensor wire. Just start this on here, turn the bolt in to start it. Now let's torque this to 47 foot-pounds. Let's put in our lower bolt. Now that that's started, I'll start on both of my mounting nuts. Lower the engine as far as it can go. Remove your support. Let's bottom these out. Now we can torque each of these to 36 foot-pounds. Now that the mount is completely torqued, let's go ahead and readjust the exhaust. We'll slide it in position over our exhaust gasket. Now we can install both of our spring bolts. Now we can torque each of these to 32 foot-pounds. Okay, friend, we got our engine mount installed in the vehicle. Now at this point, what you want to do is make sure you start up the vehicle, put your foot on the brake, and run it through all the gears. While you're doing this, you want to make sure that the engine isn't shifting around very much on you. That's probably the whole reason why you're replacing the mount in the first place. Assuming it feels good, go ahead and take it for a road test. Thanks for watching.